Swaddywell Pit. We'll be here a few times this season. It's another strange one. Where is it? It's sort of round the back of Helpston Way. Very difficult to get to. There's nowhere to park basically, so it's a bit precarious, but yeah, it's a strange place with an even stranger and a bit of a weird and sometimes worrying recent history, but it does contain orchids at various times during the year, in two locations, which happen to be in the top corner and the bottom corner, so well apart. We're going down to the bottom end today in search of man orchids, which might just be coming out. There's no guarantee, but I'm hoping they might just be coming out enough for us to capture. But before we do that, I'm going to wander across to the top corner where there should be nothing, because the orchids there are orchids that come out later in the season, when we will be back to see them. But as I say, it's a weird place, and it's a place to expect the unexpected, and I'm not going to walk past without just checking that there's nothing turning up there. Now, it used to be a nature reserve about 100 years ago, one of the first nature reserves in the country, but it was sold off. I think it was in about the 1920s. It was sold off back to farmland, and then it became a quarry, and it was dug out, and there's actually a quarry. If I just rotate around in the background there's a working, that's not it, let's get it right, there in the background, there is a working quarry, Stamford Stone Company today. It's just migrated away from this field down to that one. Now, this used to be a quarry, no problem there, but when they filled it in, that's when the fun started. During the war, it became a bomb dump. I'll have to look into that one, because that sounds quite worrying. It probably isn't, but all sorts of waste was dumped in there. It became a tip. There'll be Peterboreans who might be old enough to remember it being a tip. So all sorts of garbage got thrown into the quarry, and a lot of stuff went in there that shouldn't have gone in there. There was a big inquiry, I think as recently as about 30 years ago. It was found that some of the stuff that was used to fill in the quarry was pretty dangerous stuff, chemical wise. So the company responsible was charged with putting it right, and I trust they did, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So it was all cleaned out, and again Mother Nature's taken over. It was an abused site really for many years. Around about the 80s and 90s they had illegal car racing on here, no problem with that, but it was used for motor racing, illegal raves apparently, hard to believe, but before my time. So yeah, fly tipping, all sorts of rubbish went into this place, but it's been taken over again as a nature reserve since then. And once again you've got a capping above the quarry of limestone soil, and it's that limestone soil again, similar to Barnock, that has started to bring plants like the orchids back in again. And but it's still strange, and every year there are plants that crop up here, mutations, strange looking things that you won't see anywhere else. This is why I'm going to pop over and have a look. I don't even want to try and link the mutations with what might be under the ground, but yeah, it's an unusual site. It's not pretty, but it's always worth a trek out here just to see if there's anything growing. So I'm going to wander over there now and just take a look before heading down towards where the man orchids are. The surface of the site, as you can see, it's more akin to a building site than it is to a nature reserve. But ironically, it's this sort of sparse, not particularly fertile, nutritious, basically rubbish ground that many of the orchids love. Later in the year, I'll be back to see what used to be the finest colony of bee orchids anywhere in Peterborough. It wasn't so good last year, but I'm hoping it'll be back in its glory this year. But the bee orchids in particular love this really ugly, barren sort of landscape. So we'll come back and have a look later on. But as I say, it's nothing, you wouldn't come here for a picnic, put it that way. It's a strange one, but you know, the orchids are moving in, as it were. Okay, we're sort of at the top end of the field that I was heading for now. If you ever come here looking for orchids, look out for this concrete, I don't know what it is, it's a marker, but everything behind this concrete pillar across into the corner is the sort of orchid rich part of the top of the site. So if anything's going to happen orchid wise, it'll be here. I'm not expecting anything really, because the species that tend to grow here are species that won't be in flower for at least another 3 or 4 weeks. But like I say, it's the unexpected type of site. So I just wanted to check it out. I'm not seeing anything, I have to say. As expected, absolutely nothing at the top end of the field. Just goats really. These goats are here every time I visit. They may well be used to actually graze the grassland here, which has to be done to keep it ideal for the plants that grow here. I suspect that's what they're sitting here for, even though they're behind fences, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here. But I'm going to wander down now to the bottom end of the field. Bit of a trek, but that's where I'm hoping to find the man orchids if I can reach them, which I couldn't last year, but I'll explain more when we get down there. Okay, we've wandered down now to the bottom end of Swaddywell Pit, where there used to be a quarry as well. The quarry used to be over there, where the rushes are. It's been filled in as well, but it's been filled in with water, as it should be, and it's a nice little spot down here. It's the pretty end of Swaddywell. Not too much by way of orchid interest, but the man orchids, if we find them, are on that bank just over my shoulder, the sort of stony and very steep bank. Now man orchids, I mean all orchids are rare. Man orchids are elusive because they don't have a brightly coloured flower. They're strange looking things. They're all yellows and greens and browns, and in most locations where man orchids grow, they're very, very hard to see because you've got to be within inches of them to even notice them. They just don't stand out. There's no bright colours. The joy of the Swaddywell man orchids, and I'm talking them up here so they better be there, is that they grow on this bank, so they tend to stand out. They're also the best man orchids that I've ever seen. They're obviously very happy there. They grow big and strong, probably 2 to 3 times bigger than I've seen on other sites in the area. So it's a rare plant. It shouldn't really be in flower, and I use the term flower loosely. As you'll see, it's not a flower as you and I might know it, but it doesn't emerge as a flower as such usually until about another week or two's time. But I've been tipped off that a few of them are starting to show up now, so hopefully going to go over and have a look. Now the problem last year with this site is there's a stream that runs across the foot of the bank, and if that stream is filled up as it was last year, you can't get across without waders or wellies, and I have neither on, so I'm hoping I can clamber across what will hopefully be a dry stream bed to what will be a very steep climb. So I'll probably go over a few times, but it's worth the trip, so we'll head over there. If you do come to see these, be warned, apart from having to wade through water for much of the year, this bank is very steep. It is very, very difficult to get up to where the orchids are. So I don't know what the appropriate footwear looks like, but you won't do it in high heels, that's for sure. As you can see, the stream bed is dry, and that is good news. It's just a matter of whether the man orchids are out or not. And I'm looking. Yeah, they are. I can see them high up on that bank. So I'm going to clamber up there now and see if I can get close enough to film them. If you hear a crash, it's me. Here we go. Those are the man orchids. Those tall, thin, nondescript items. I'm going to get up close in a second. Okay. Right. This is the man orchid. This one not in flower yet, or hardly in flower yet, I don't know. It's getting there. This one's in a better open condition now. If I can hold the camera still, not slide down this bank. This is precarious. Right, do it again. Better foothold now. You can probably see why it's called a man orchid. If you look at the one at the bottom, I want to make sure I'm in focus. They look like little men. They look like little men with helmets on, with two legs. As you see from the one at the bottom on this stalk, 2 legs, 2 arms, and a sort of alien head on it, hence the man orchid. There's a very similar and much rarer orchid known as the frog orchid, which we might be able to catch at Barnock later in the year, exceptionally rare, that doesn't look too dissimilar to this, although I've never been able to work out the frog in it, but we'll have a look. But yeah, these are the man orchids, and you get little colonies of them like you've got here, but not many. It's a rare one, but they seem to like it here. There's a few, some of them still opening, but as I say, it's a tough location to get to. This bank is pretty steep. See quite a big one from here. It's a matter of whether I can reach it without making a fool of myself. Ugh. There we go. That's a very sturdy looking man orchid. Not really yet in flower apart from at the bottom. Opens from the bottom up, so at the top it's still in bud. There's another one right down by my feet. They actually grow all over the place here. You need to be careful not to tread on them. But yeah, it's quite a good colony here. It seems to be growing stronger each year. They just like it on here. You can see from the soil, it's a very gritty, stony, gravelly sort of thing that your garden plants wouldn't grow in, but the orchids love it. So that's the man orchid for you. Okay, well that's the man orchids at Swaddiewell. This time of year, that's it. This place really lifts off in probably 4 weeks' time onwards. There's about another 4 or 5 species of orchid that grow on the higher field where we first stopped at when we came in. They're worth coming and seeing, even if it's not the prettiest of sights. Some of the orchids here are tremendous. Just over my shoulder down here, 2 years ago there was a solitary lizard orchid grew here. Now that caused a real stir in the orchid world because they simply don't grow around this part of the UK. The nearest colony is known to be at Newmarket on the other side of Cambridge. But it was reported there was one here. I had doubts, but I came down one evening to find a few other fanatics down here, and it was here. A solitary plant. It had gone over. It wasn't at its best, but it was here, and I photographed it. And I raced back last year in the hope of seeing it in a better condition, and it wasn't here. It had vanished. Like many orchids, they can appear and then vanish and lie dormant. They may never come back. and it could come back any year. There's been more knowledgeable orchid people than me already been down here this year to see if they can see signs of the rosette growing that suggests it'll be back, and they've said there's nothing here. I can't remember exactly to the inch where it was, so I'm not going to even look, but I'll be watching the relevant Facebook groups very carefully this year to see if it does appear, and if it does, I'll be back. But apart from that, that's Swaddywell Pit for you, and like I say, we'll be back later in the year. Probably a couple of weeks off now from going out with the camera, because we've seen pretty much the orchids that are in flower now. There's a short gap really, when hopefully the weather will warm up a wee bit, and then the more spectacular early summer orchids will be coming out, and I'll be back out then. So until then, see you around again.